We are talking A Sound of Thunder. This one is directed by Peter Hyams and stars Edward Burns, Ben Kingsley and Catherine McCormick. Now this is based on a short story by Ray Bradbury, and this movie was originally going to be directed by Rennie Harlin. However, he left the project due to not getting on particularly well with Ray Bradbury, so then was replaced with Peter Hyams, who has gone on to direct a number of kind of like higher profile movies, including Time Cop, End of Days, etc. So obviously based on a short story, and it essentially is the butterfly effect, if you understand that scientific concept. So the movie is set in, I think it's 2055, and we have, at this point, a company has mastered time travel. And what they do with it is essentially go back to the Cretaceous period and take high-paying guests there to kill large dinosaurs, like a big game hunt sort of thing. Now these dinosaurs were ones that were due to die at some point in the immediate future. For example, there's one which is essentially the one that we see. This Allosaurus is just about to fall in a tar pit, and instead they shoot him in with these kind of like ice bullets, so they dissolve, things like this. So in theory it should never affect like the timeline. However, inevitably things go wrong when someone inadvertently steps on an insect. Now this causes a chain events, and it ultimately affects evolution. So back in the present timeline, there are waves of these, they call them time waves, and every time one hits, things are dramatically changed, and we have new wildlife which is evolved from dinosaurs that are particularly aggressive, and obviously it's up to a team of survivors to try and maybe fix this before humans ultimately get blinked out of existence. So, a very high concept movie, and it is a pretty interesting concept. But why didn't this movie do particularly well? Well, we'll discuss when we talk about the negatives, but let's talk about the positives. And I have to say, the scope of this one is pretty, it's pretty ambitious. Ray Bradbury, obviously, one of the most famous science fiction authors of our time. And, he has done some pretty good work here, and this concept is no different. It's a fantastic concept that is, is really ripe for a good adaptation. Although I don't know after the bomb this one had whether we'll ever see a remake or anything like that. But nonetheless, the story here is pretty fascinating, and obviously we get to see all sorts of things. We have scenes that are set in prehistoric times with an Allosaurus and things like that. And then we have our future timelines, both before all the kind of stuff happens, and also when these evolutionary effects kind of take place with all sort of hyper evolved creatures that are at this point very, very dangerous because they've evolved through the millions of years and are perfectly evolved to hunt whatever they want to hunt and things like that. So the concept is fantastic. I actually thought our cast was pretty good. You have some reasonable actors here, I think, and the acting isn't too bad. I think the script, obviously, we'll talk about the negatives in a second. The book is obviously a fairly classic piece of literature. However, I think maybe the script isn't as good. Anyway, but the actors, I feel, do the best job that they can with the material that they were given. There's also some interesting designs on our future evolved creatures. I personally think maybe they could have done a little bit more there. They keep relying on maybe the same creature a little bit too much, but we do see a few others. I don't know if to be honest with you, I'm no scientist, but I don't know if it would have particularly gone in the direction that we see necessarily. But anyway, who knows? It's science fiction. But nonetheless, it's we do have some quite sort of interesting designs here. And it's a pretty exciting movie with lots of kind of set pieces. But apparently this movie wasn't completely finished when it was released, and it shows. By far and away, the biggest issue with this movie is its very poor special effects. I'm fairly sure I saw this at the cinema, because I actually I'd heard of this novel before it came out, and I was quite I remember being interested in seeing it before it was released, and I may have seen it at the cinema. It was obviously a long time ago, But even back then, when I first saw it, with be it on the cinema or on the home format, I thought the effects looked bad, and they look really bad now. This has heavy use of green screen. There are a few effects that look okay, but man, this looks like an episode of like a time travel show on like an American network TV. It looks really bad. I mean, the effects are, you know, you can sometimes forgive, I would say, movies for a certain degree that have a low budget, but the budget for this film was, you know, nearly 100 million, and this was in the year 2002. So, I mean, I know it went over budget because of the floods and things, but it looks such a bad film in regards to its effects. The movie, as I've kind of mentioned, and I think the actors do the goodest job as they can, but the dialogue and the script really doesn't give them a lot to work with. So the bones of the story are there, and there's a solid setup, but the actual interplay that we have between characters seems a little trite to me. There's also a few kind of just elements here that I just don't think make some sense. Like in the future timeline, we see virtually no humans. They all seem to, you know, it's meant to be over the case of a couple of days and things, but the ones that we do seem to have devolved into like almost cavemen. I think this has been a couple of days. You know, it's just, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yet our heroes all seem to be completely with it and everything. Some of the set pieces feel a little bit sort of tacked on to a certain degree, and I have to say, our heroes are in a kind of a race against time to try and stop. You know, they have a limited window to try and undo all the mess. And yet they sort of go on a few little side missions to try and rescue various people. And again, I know it might seem callous, but you can rescue everyone if you obviously sort the mess out. And it seems that they try and maybe go a little bit off book, a little bit too much again. And there are some characters here that just like fade into the background, and you're meant to really care about and have some connection with, but you don't. Overall, you can tell this movie had some issues. Apparently, it was not finished. Had it been finished, I don't know what it would have looked like. But it is seriously bad in regards to some CGI, some really dated and quite poor at the time anyway. CGI, horrible green screen. And to be honest with you, a smart idea made into somewhat of a lackluster B movie. It is still an interesting, fun movie to a degree because it's such a high concept. And you do have some relatively good actors there. So it's not a complete write-off. But I think some of the creature designs are a little disappointing as well. But, you know, there you go. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to you next time. Bye for now.